Okay, here we go. Geometry. We are looking at coordinate geometry this week and the midpoint formula and distance formula. So anytime we're using the XY axis or the Cartesian plane, we're talking about coordinate geometry. Okay, and so we're going to be looking at an easy version and then a not so easy version of looking at distance and midpoint. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to plot these points, okay? And remember, this is your x, this is your y, x, y. This is your y-axis, this is your x-axis. So to plot this point A, I'm going to go back 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the x-axis, and then up 1, 2, 3. So this is point A, and point B is going to be back 1, up 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, there's point B. All right, so it's pretty easy to find the midpoint here between these two. It would be right here, right? 2 spots away from each, right? 1, 2 to the left, and then 1, 2 to the right. So the midpoint here would be, what point is this? I try to find this point, so I go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is back 3 because I went to the negatives, then I went up, which is positive. So this would be point negative 3, 3. All right, and then the distance for a straight line like this is really easy. All we need to do is just count to get from A to B. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be 4 units. Okay? All right, now let's look at this not so easy example. All right, we've got point C is at -6, -5. And again, this is your y, here's your x. I really want you guys to get in the habit, not necessarily for plotting these out, but you're going to want to mark which one's your x and which one's your y when we're using the formulas. So I'm going to have to go 6 to the left, which would be negative. So -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then down 5, which is negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now, point D is over 7. And the right is positive 7. So we're going to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then up 1, 2, 3. All right, so here is point C, here is point D, and there's no way I make a good line here, but I'm going to try. Not horrible. But as you can see, it's pretty hard to kind of estimate exactly where the middle of these 2 points are. So we can't really count it. What we're going to have to do is use a formula. Okay, so that brings me to the first one. So we've got this midpoint formula. I need you guys to pause the video and write this down. I should write this as well. This is m is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2 again, or over 2. So write those down, and now we're going to solve these. So I think it's always nice to kind of label these. It doesn't really matter a whole lot with midpoint, but it will with distance formula, to just say, okay, these are my first points, so I'm going to label them x1, y1, and these are my second points, so I'm going to call it x2, y2. All right, so now I just follow the formula. The formula says, let me just get it up here a little bit. The formula says x1 plus x2, so x1 plus x2. All right, well, that would be -6 plus 7 over 2, separated with a comma because these are just points, right? It's going to find a point or a spot on this Cartesian plane or on this XY grid where exactly the midpoint is. All right, now I add up the y's. y1 plus y2, that's going to be -5 plus 3 divided by 2. And now we just solve these, okay? So the first one, negative 6 plus 7, that's going to be 1 over 2. So why don't we just leave that as a fraction? Or you could get 0.5, and they're both correct. And then negative 5 plus 3 equals negative 2, and negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Okay, again, this is something you can do in your calculator. So that means that the exact midpoint of this is over just a half and down 1. So that would be your midpoint. All right, and so what is the distance between these two points? Now we've got a new formula. Go ahead, and so here's your midpoint. There's your distance formula. It is d is equal to the square root of x squared, or sorry, not x squared, x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then don't forget, we're going to take the square root of everything after we solve underneath that square root bar. Okay? All right, so I am going to give myself more room, so I'm going to erase this. So if you haven't already copied this down, pause the video right now so you can do so. All right, I'm going to erase. All right, the distance formula, I want to get this on there. The distance formula is right here. Okay, so we've got x2, which is 7. All right, so I'm going to write the whole thing out. So it's going to be d is equal to, here's a big radicand, x2 is 7 minus x1, which was negative 6. Ooh, this is minus a negative, so I'm going to put this in parentheses, and then formula says to square this. Now we're going to add the y's, or so not the y parts. We're going to go y2, which is negative, or which is 3 minus, because that's what the formula says, and again, negative 5. So I have to put this in parentheses again. And there we go. All right, now I need to simplify underneath this radicand, or this square root symbol, before I do anything else. So I have 7 minus a negative 6. So what I'm going to do is just change this to positive, and then we're going to change that to positive. So now I'm going to get 7 plus 6, which is 13. So I've simplified in these parentheses. We still need to square it. All right, plus, let's do this part next, 3 minus negative 5. Again, we're going to change this to positive, change that to positive. All right, so that's going to equal 3 plus 5, which is 8. Don't forget, we got to bring this 2 down. All right, and now we go ahead and we square these. So 13 squared is 169 plus 84. And then now we add them together. Oops. Okay, so 169 plus 64 is 233. And keep in mind, so all we've done is just simplified underneath this radicand. So what we still have left is we need the square root of this to equal our answer. So if we type this into our calculator, remember we have to hit our second key in the x squared button, because the second key will access all those green secondary functions. Now I'm going to type in 233, press enter, and it's going to spit out the same answer. That just means this is in simplest radical form. All right, so if I want the decimal equivalent, I hit the button that's right above the enter key in the lower right hand corner. It's got double arrows on it, and I hit that and I get an approximate answer, which is 15.264333752. I'm going to round this to the nearest 10th place, so this is going to be 15.3. All right, so the distance between points C and D is equal to 15.3. Okay, all right. Okay, let's look at this other example. We've got segment ME has the endpoints of M is -6, 4, and E is 5, 2. All right, and I think it is really critical, guys, to go ahead and label these points. You have x1, y1, and x2, y2. Okay, so let's plot these points out. -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down 2, or no, sorry, not down 2, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's point M, and point E is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down to 1, 2. All right. Yeah, so this one looks like it's going to be pretty difficult to estimate what the midpoint and distance is, so we're just going to use our formulas. So I'm going to scoot this up so we can see both of our formulas, and then we're just going to follow them. Okay, so the midpoint formula right up here, we're just going to add up our x's, which is going to be -6 plus 5 over 2, and add up our y's. 4 plus -2, all right, over 2. Okay, now we just can simplify these. -6 plus 5, that's -1 over 2. Let's just call this -1/2. If you type it into your calculator, you might get -0.5. That's okay. And then our y, we got 4 plus a -2, which is going to be 2. 2 over 2 simplifies to 1. All right, so there is my midpoint. All right, now let's do my distance. Okay, so again, I'm going to write this down here. D is equal to the square root of x2, so that's 5, minus x1, which is -6. So again, I'm going to put this in parentheses, and then we got to square it, plus y2, which is -2, minus y1, which is 4, and square that. All right, so now got our formula in there. Now we just have to solve. And we could probably type this whole thing into the calculator, but I'm just going to simplify underneath and then take the square root. So 5 plus -6, I'm going to change this to positive. So 5 plus 6 is 11 squared. Don't forget that. Plus -2 minus 4 is -6. Square it. And now we're just going to combine these, or we're going to square them and combine them. 11 squared is 121 plus 6 squared. Make sure when you do this, this is in parentheses, otherwise your calculator will not recognize this negative. So -6 times -6 is positive 36. Now we add those together and I get 157. And don't forget, we still need to take the square root of this. Okay, so now this is just typing this into the calculator. And we should get, if I type in 157, spits out the same answer, double arrow key, I get 12.52. So I'm just going to round this to 12.5. All right, so there's my distance. My distance between M and E is 12.5 units. Okay. All right, that's all we've got for this week as far as notes. So just give your practice problems a shot. And if you need help, come see me on a Google Meet. All right, good luck.